We all worship something. It can be money, sex, fame, or power. But today we're going to talk to you about how the worship of athletics in our culture is actually something that's a negative. So first, let's start by defining what worship and adoration is. Worship is the act of exalting one thing above all else in your life. This is a continuous process, and it doesn't just end when you step off the field or turn off the TV. When you worship something, it's a reflection of your day-to-day life because you see what that focus is through how you live your life. We as humans have been created with one focus, and that should be God. He commands this over us in Exodus 20 when he says, "You shall have no other gods before me." And again, in Deuteronomy 6, verses 13 through 14, it says, "You shall fear the Lord your God, and you shall worship him and swear by his name. You shall not follow any of the gods of your people who surround you." When the Bible talks about gods, it's referring to the ancient gods of ancient history. But in our society today, we still have these gods. They may not be a deity or something that we worship specifically, but anything that we place above God can be an idol. So let's talk about what it means to idolize something. Idolizing something is placing it above God. We as humans stretch to do this in our society in many different ways. We do it through money, sex, fame, success, or power, but even athletics. Anything that we place above God can become an idol, and that's something that's not good. So next, I'm going to hand it off to Silas, and he's going to talk about how we worship athletics in our society.
So how do we worship athletics in our society today? So sports can become an idol that we worship when we spend more time with that than, say, things we need to spend time on, like loved ones, God, or even improving ourselves. Some examples of this is, say, Sunday or Monday nights. You're walking by the halls and you just hear sports on, football on in every room because of Sunday and Monday night football. And people are screaming at the TV, they're throwing things. People punch TVs sometimes when their team loses. And that is a problem because people are putting so much in this game that they forget to spend time with their life. Sports are not inherently bad. They can teach us great things like team dynamics, physical fitness. But when this becomes a top priority in your life, that's when it becomes a problem.
So the next subject is on how societies push athletics and how that role is taken on by society. So athletics serve in two main roles. The first role, it's a cause and effect. The first thing is that there's the profit generation for clubs and associations. They all want to drive a profit to increase their income for shareholders and those who want the money, including the athletes. And that effect of that is that it blurs our image of the real world and a realistic outlook for how people should look at their future. Mass media or television networks or news outlets, they all foster this infatuation presenting these athletes and athletics as role models. You think to the Olympics, you think to your favorite sports players as a kid, you think to the sports that you played. Those players were highly worshipped. Their stat lines were on every billboard. If they did something important like breaking a record, everyone knew about it. They were raised up above, they were given bonuses for doing this, and the media worships that, and they make it higher than anything else. That's on all the news networks, not anything that God has done. Modern sports and the idols that are created through them resemble our own God as an act of worship. You think of wearing their names on the back of your jersey. Some people get tattoos of these players. They're everywhere. Society has encouraged this to happen by saying, wow, that's very cool that you do that you wear their jersey or stuff like that, where these players are raised above our own God as an act of worship and adoration towards them. The next part that we have to talk about is how this can actually lead to a dehumanization of people.
To understand what dehumanization is, it's first important to understand what it means to be human. To be human, you must be one with God. God even said in Genesis 1:26, "Let us make man in our image after our likeness." It is holding the image of God, or imago Dei. Lack of living through the image of God creates a dehumanization. Living with compassion and love is part of being human. It's a communicable trait that we share with God. And the second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than thee, says Mark 12:31. meaning it's very important to spread love and compassion, which can sometimes get lost in the name of sports. False idols also create dehumanization. You shall have no other gods before me, says Exodus 23. How can placing your human dignity in athletics cause this dehumanization now that we know what it is? It can foster a lack of compassion for others, as said before, whether that be with competition or anger, such as hitting a TV or punching a wall, anything like that. It can also consume fans with pride, and human dignity should be placed in God, and placing it anywhere else takes away from yourself. And if we're made in the likeness of God, then straying away from Him takes away from self. The negative effects of worshiping athletics can be seen through ourselves and our society. It can be seen on self because it takes away from self-identity, moods can be determined by a team's wins or losses, and it draws away from worshiping God. Without valuing God, these morals can be lost. The image of God disappears, image of self disappears, and even per Harvard Health, it can cause health issues because you're so wrapped up in the game and what's happening. On society, it draws society to value sports over God. A sports game can take precedent over church even because it's on Sunday. It creates a superficial community based on superficial worship, and society worships strange gods, which Aquinas explains, thou shalt not have strange gods. Now I'm going to pass it over to Silas, who's going to conclude us off.
In conclusion, idolatry is putting anything above God. And anything can be idolized. Money, sex, fame, or even this little guy. Sports are not bad, but they become bad if they're placed above God. Society pushes athletics onto the youth in a very unhealthy way, and sports can dehumanize people if we're not careful. Thank you.